Hi, you're listening to Dusk to Dawn, reading horror and weird fiction. We're your hosts, Amber and Dan.
Find any trigger warnings in our episode notes. We're happy you're joining us and enjoy the show. Come on down to Yeehaw Junction with us on this special bonus episode that we've got cooked up for you. What are we doing today? Why are we posting in the middle of our usual episode cadence?
Well, we have a bonus episode.
Okay, that's true.
And that is Yeehaw Junction by Kayli Scholz. And this book actually, I wouldn't say fell into my lap, but I met the editor of the publishing company Moonstruck Books, and they were kind enough to gift me this book. They like our podcast, and we just started chatting, and I thought it would be fun to do an episode. It's just come out, and thought it would be a fun little treat since it's a small publisher. Thought it would be fun to give them a little spotlight here. So Moonstruck Books is a Portland-based publishing company, but the author, Kayli Scholz, actually lives in Florida, which makes this book a lot more okay.
Yeah, let's go right into it. Kayli Scholz is a horror author living and writing in the wilds of Florida. She's the author of St. Grit, Black Rain Season, Yeehaw Junction, and various short stories.
This is my first encounter with Scholz's work.
And it's a good one. It's also short. It's under 200 pages.
Yeah, it's pretty short. It's intense. There's a lot in there for this little book. Or would you call it a novella? Would you call it a novella?
I don't know.
I think it's a novel.
I think it's a novel. Short novel.
It doesn't hold anything back. So if you're sensitive about making fun of Florida, and don't read this book.
And a whole lot of other things.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of triggers going on in this book, which makes it really good.
It also, I would say this fulfills the weird fiction part of our podcast. I would say it's maybe more weird fiction than horror. I'm not really sure. It's really weird, and there are horrific things going on.
Serious horrific things. I mean, sure, I think it blends into both, but I would definitely consider this horror.
Should we go into the summary?
Okay. When a family of thieves and runaways joins the search for a missing girl in rural Florida, they're drawn into a chemical conspiracy that extends far beyond their worst nightmares. Told through the eyes of Skeet, an aspiring school shooter and Marilyn Manson fan, Yeehaw Junction is a gritty, fast-paced Southern noir packed with unforgettable imagery and horror. Yeah, see, right there, horrors. It even says horror crime is the subgenre. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So we're in 1999. This is the year that the Columbine school shooting happened.
Yes, I
remember
that.
That part of the reaction to that was like a bunch of backlash against Marilyn Manson and his music, because like at that point he was pretty much a household name, right? I think.
Yeah, he was, and like the alternative scene, so it's like, oh, how you can't listen to this kind of music without being a bad person.
Yeah, so the
media. That was my experience.
Yeah, the media connected him immediately to like what could have caused such a horrific thing to happen.
I think also the shooter was
no, I looked that up, which is weird, not to, I don't know, put a spotlight on the shooters or anything, but I did quickly look up, like, did they listen to Marilyn Manson? Not to even say that would mean that these accusations would be accurate, but apparently no, they did not, although the media immediately made that connection and assumed that they had, but I guess they didn't.
Well, they do that with video games too. Like if a shooter plays Call of Duty, for instance, then all of a sudden it's Call of Duty's fault because,
It has nothing to do with our completely broken system of gun regulation.
No, not at all. Absolutely not. We are totally fine over here with our Second Amendment rights that have been way skewed out of context of the actual intention of the Constitution. But again,
it's not a political podcast. That should be the name of our podcast. This is not a political podcast. Okay, so let's set the scene. We know it's 1999. The very beginning of the book has this really interesting disclaimer talking about the whole thing with the Columbine high school shooting and like how Marilyn Manson was blamed for it, because our main character Skeet and our narrator is very forward
That's
about
the same person. Skeet is our narrator.
Yeah.
You made it sound like Skeet
Oh,
and
did I?
the narrator. Yeah.
Is very much like, I want to be like Marilyn Manson and shoot up a school. And just so you know, as a trigger warning, there's a lot of horrific things that happen in this. There's not a school shooting or any of that. So that would be too much. all the other stuff's fine, but that would be too much.
That becomes gore porn. Is that what it's called? Or like when you have an unnecessary rape scene in a movie that's like way too long. Like that. I was just telling you about that movie I started watching, and it was like, no, I'm over it. This isn't no.
Yeah, but the author does have this like disclaimer that's like, Marilyn Manson is referred to throughout this book. No trademark infringement is intended. So it goes on a little more than that. But anyway, it's really just to set the scene of like Florida, 1999, and it opens with Skeet, our narrator. Let's not say how old Skeet is yet, because this is not something as a reader you figure out until later, which just like hits you like a ton of bricks. Yeah. Is hanging out with his good friend Cricket. And they're on the side of the road, like pulling along a wagon filled with jars that have DDT infused soil that they sell to tourists for $2.
So we're not going to say how old Skeet is, but the age difference between Skeet and Cricket is massive.
Although
they're friends.
Yeah.
Cricket is older than us, very much an adult. Skeet is not. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, but the way that they talk, I don't know. I kind of figured they were teenagers.
I thought they were the same.
Yeah, something like that.
I thought they were the same age or very close.
Yeah, and it's like this wagon only has 3 wheels. I think it's like Skeet is described as having all these like boils all over his body. And at first you think it's kind of like, oh, because he's got his shirt off in the Florida sun and he doesn't have any sunscreen on. But it goes a little bit into the history of DDT, which, if you didn't know, was a
pesticide.
There we go. A synthetic insecticide that was widely used to control mosquitoes to help with agriculture in Florida. And so there was a time between, I don't know, the
World War II in the 60s, I think, right?
Yeah, around then, where DDT would just be like sprayed over huge swaths of Florida and probably other states too, but I didn't look that up. I think and it would like go over residential areas too.
Yeah, I think you can kind of think of it like how they used Agent Orange just indiscriminately around American soldiers in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And they did basically the same thing with DDT in Florida. So...
And it's great because Skeet says...
And this is real. This is actual American history. This is not fiction.
Yeah. And it's funny because like Skeet mentions how they just tell the tourists, they're like, buy a $2 jar of DDT infused soil. It helps counteract, what was it, earthworm leaching. Like he just makes something up. Like it'll help grow your... I think he says like it'll help grow your fruit trees and like keep earthworms away from, I don't know, whatever story he comes up with that sounds fancy and people will fall for.
Well, and I think the joke there too, right, is that this is basically what the government said.
Yeah.
So it seems so ridiculous, but you know, it depends on who's saying it, right? If it's a little kid, then all of a sudden then it's ridiculous. But if it's the government, then we're supposed to believe it.
Yeah. So we get Cricket and Skeet just like on the side of the road, pulling their wagon, and they pull into Yeehaw Junction, which is a real place. I don't know how much this Yeehaw Junction is supposed to be like that, but there are certainly some similarities.
I would say pretty similar. I looked on Google Maps, and the images that were posted were basically a demolished building and some pretty sad looking streets covered in, you know, how Florida just is it can be so lush. Like everything's just covered in greenery. It looks like maybe 6 people live there.
Yeah. There's no church here, which is probably why all these terrible things are happening to these people.
Of course it is.
But it's like there's a general store, a diner with a titty bar above it, which one of the characters works at, and not a whole lot else. It's described as like an intersection that used to be a stopping point for trucks and travelers and all that, but then another interstate has been built around it so that it's decayed. I mean, I don't know if it was ever at a high point, but wherever it was, it's even worse off than it was because it's no longer, a main traveling intersection.
That scene, I think, does a really good job of just indicating what life is like in this small town. It's run down. Kids are left to do whatever they want.
Yeah. They immediately go to like the general store, and Skeet like goes in there and like goes into the freezer and takes ice and like rubs it in his armpits and stuff. He rubs it in his armpits and then he pops it into his mouth. Yeah. I mean, this gives off very Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes.
Yes, I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah, in terms of just like, these people are fucked up.
It's very nihilistic, this book.
Yeah, and he like lights up a cigarette in the store and is like talking shit to like a truck driver who comes because there's also a gas station there, and is just like openly mocking the people who work at the store, or like the kid who works at the store, and people who are traveling through. And Cricket is talking. What is Cricket talking about? She's got a celebration going on. And
so Cricket was a survivor of abuse. Her dad physically abused her, and she every year gets a cake from the government in like a "Yay, you survived abuse" cake.
Which she's really excited about. She likes celebrating
really
this.
Excited about. And as I mentioned before, she's older and she thinks that she is still pregnant from her years of abuse. And it's been over 20 years.
Yes, it's been 28 years for her.
Yeah, pretty intense, pretty horrible. It also just gives you a really good idea of Cricket's state of mind. She's very excited about her cake, and Skeet plays along with this whole thing, and it's just like, oh yeah, you're looking great, like you're looking super pregnant. And everyone actually that they come in contact with that knows who Cricket is plays along with this story. But yeah, so they're gonna eat some cake. They're so excited. I love getting cake from the government.
I just want to see like the shape of this cake when it comes in the mail. It's gotta be pretty sad looking. So let's talk a little bit with like, we open up with Skeet and Cricket, but they are part of a pretty big family. Family used loosely, at least they live in a group together. And at the head of this group is Trudy. She's the foster parent for 5 kids.
She's also the one who dances at the strip club, correct?
She does, yes. She's definitely using these kids for welfare payments.
As you do.
But we have Skeet, Cricket, Macon, who is 17, which is like kind of weighing on her because once he turns 18, she's not going to get those welfare checks anymore, and he's a pain in the ass. And then there's Jenna and Bam Bam, who is 6 years old and who likes to climb in trees and go around wearing a Monica Lewinsky mask, which is terrifying.
And Bam Bam is the only one that is Trudy's child.
Yes.
Yeah. The rest are foster kids.
And none of them go to school, and they live in just a horrific conditions. Like, I don't even know if it's a hoarder house or if it's just like trash is everywhere house. Is there a difference?
Yes,
I think
there is a difference, because usually with hoarding, it's purposeful. Like, you're collecting certain things and you have a problem with throwing things away. So it's in a sense, it's like a
more a collection,
intense collecting thing. Yeah. Whereas if it's just garbage, it's just because you're too lazy or don't have a garbage can or whatever. So there's definitely a difference, but I don't think it's really made clear to us, which it is, but there's like stuff piled everywhere, and Skeet has a little box that they like to sit in on a chair that's covered in shit. So it's just like there's stuff everywhere. It's it kind of reads to me as if it's a dump, like piles of stuff, like a dump.
Yeah, I think one of their seats in front of the TV is like a shopping cart full of clothes that they'll like go and sit in. Like, yeah. I think
it's more
nasty.
of a poverty thing than a hoarding thing.
Yeah.
Which, of course, if you're in poverty, it could lead to hoarding. If you're prone to that. But I think just the need of stuff and having nowhere to put it, and you're not going to spend your money on a nice armoire.
Yeah, so there's just like these crazy characters living in terrible conditions, and I think we should talk a little bit about Skeet's voice as the narrator. Definitely an unreliable narrator.
100% unreliable, and that's established pretty much instantaneously. Like, we know right off the bat, Skeet is not one to be trusted. Okay. And also, a thing that makes Skeet an interesting character is that he has these encounters with this man in a black trench coat, and Skeet's like, why the hell is this person wearing a trench coat in 92 degrees, like summer in Florida? And they keep saying to Skeet every time they see him, radium and lead and young blood's head, everything goes to hell. And that is like a mantra that keeps coming back into the story. And I think eventually we get a little bit more insight on who this man in black is, but honestly, no, not really.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like these characters are crazy. The whole DDT chemical spray thing is brought up enough where you wonder, and maybe there's not a difference, but like how much of them being wild is because of who they are, and how much have they like been infected by the DDT, and what kind of effects is it having on their psychology?
Yeah, it really does make you wonder about the DDT thing, because, the joke for the rest of the country is like, oh, if it'll happen anywhere, it'll happen in Florida, like people getting attacked by alligators, people doing just outlandish things ending up in national news just because of how insane it is.
Yeah, this is one of those things where, like, if the author had not been from Florida, and it is a fiction book, it's not nonfiction, but still, it would have been like, okay, that's like, you're going too hard into the crazy Florida.
Yeah, like you might offend people anyway, but yeah. It's like making fun of Texas for being the Lone Star State. Okay, at some point you gotta like lay off a bit. But no, I'm all for it. She's from Florida. Great. Let's go. Let's go to town.
Dig in.
And boy, she does.
So like we get introduced to these characters and their horrible living situation. They don't go to school. They just run wild. So they do make money by the welfare checks. They also have another pretty, I don't know if it's lucrative, but there is a side hustle going on that is horrific.
And this is mostly... Isn't this mostly Jenna doing this side hustle?
Jenna with help from Trudy. So,
right.
I mean, okay. I can just read about it, and this will give you a little bit of a hint at like the narrator's voice, which is just crazy. So on top of welfare and dancing at the titty bar, Trudy made extra cash doing specialty modeling. All right, get ready for this. She posed next to dead bodies in lacy black underwear with slut embroidered on her ass. She had friends, people she knew, and they saw to it that overdoses or homicides went unreported for a few hours so Trudy could pose with them. Suicides, old and young, infants at the hospital morgue. Like I said, Trudy knew folks. Jenna, one of the other characters that live in there, took the rotten pictures, and Ziggy sold them to special scumbags that found our family business in a sticky layer of the World Wide Web. We sent the items postal mail or handed them off at a busy strip mall, the meetup arranged in a payphone call. So that's a thing.
Yeah, and this is, again, 1999, so the internet was a bit of a different place.
So it's almost like snuff pictures, yes. I guess.
Yeah, and one of the things I really like about this book too is that there are chapters that are like interludes in between the actual story, one of which gives the website and then gives some examples of the movies that they post and how long they are. And I'll read a couple of these. I think I'll stick with some of the lighter ones, and we'll see. Okay, so we've got sections like lightning strikes, man struck by train tracks. And then we've got middle school fights, hair ripped out, 2 boys, 3 girls, blood everywhere in gym gang fight. Cafeteria prank, teacher falls and blacks out. Crazy fight, teeth knockout in gym. Forced to pull out own teeth while dancing.
And I don't have any doubt in my mind, like this kind of stuff is actually going out there.
Real, yeah. Guy jizzes in Wendy's Frosty, then serves it.
It reminds me, do you remember bum fights, which might have been around this time? There was this, it was...
Oh, yeah, someone to go pay bums.
Yeah, it would be like,
fight.
give a bum $20 and watch him pull his tooth out with pliers. And, it's just the nasty kind of stuff.
Yeah. So the last section here is clothing and dirty rotten. So toenail clippings from dead prostitutes, including overdose, fingernails from dead children, fingernails from suicides.
So yeah, Jenna's getting a hold of these kind of things and videos of them and selling them. And she also brings her own video camera around and will like go to a local high school and just like go onto campus because she's like, I think 17. So she's of the right age to be there and just talk to kids and be like, tell me where I should film. Where's all the fucked up stuff happening?
It's definitely a vibe.
All right. So we get introduced to all this craziness. What is our inciting incident? What gets the narrative moving?
All this stuff is just life per usual for Skeet and the gang. So that's more character and story building. But the main arc of the story is that this girl, Heather, Hope for Heather, goes missing. And Trudy decides that they're going to help find her because there's a hefty reward for her return.
100,000, I think.
Yeah, for information that leads to her return to her family. So they have to go on the search parties, where they go in a big group and fan out and walk through the Everglades, I guess, in this case, not the woods, and are yelling, Heather, Heather, and helping to try to find her. And Skeet, it just thinks the whole thing's ridiculous. They make t-shirts of Hope for Heather and with her face on it, and they sell it to people driving through town. Yeah,
it's great because they get to like the tent where they're going to start the search in the morning, and Skeet's like, you got food, right? Like we are getting fed. Like that's his biggest concern. And it's great because the way that it's described is you imagining normal people. Like I just imagine like school parents probably related to who had like kids who went to school with Heather, and just like, I don't know, normal, not screwed up people, and then this like gang shows up and is like, yeah, we're gonna help out. And I think Skeet's still not wearing a shirt and is covered in like these DDT warts, and they're just bottom of the barrel kind of people,
bottom feeders,
yeah, who are coming in like, we're gonna help. And I just imagine, I don't know, kind of like back to school night type of parents being like, oh yeah.
But also they don't live that far away, so it's kind of it has to be just expected that people,
yeah, I guess so,
when you live in the vicinity, they're not going to like Orlando, for instance, or Miami. I have a good quote from Skeet's point of view talking about how he views these people that he's trying to sell shit to. So I'd offer them, meaning the DDT jars, to anybody that was stupid enough to buy a t-shirt with a missing girl's face on it. The American way, as American as Mickey Mouse or food stamps you can't buy hot food with. And I just loved that second part, you can't buy hot food with the food stamps, because that theme keeps coming up in this book, that the government doesn't really support them in the ways that make the most sense, right? Like, so Trudy talks a lot about how she's getting basically free money from the government for raising these kids, but does an absolutely abysmal job, pretty much ignores them and just cashes the checks, which actually brings me to another quote. So Trudy is talking about dealing with fostering here. It's a funny system, it is. I got more money from fostering that boy than his mama got from the government when she was working full time and trying to take care of him. That's the funny part about being a woman, too. If I'd been working custodial on my own volition, had a baby, I'd get called irresponsible, maybe even foolish or selfish. Making ends meet, that's what it's about, right? But if I'd already had the baby, Skeet in this instance, and I was scrubbing shit off public toilet lids, well, in that case, I'm just a breadwinner. I'm just providing. I'm a mom. So for being so shitty and in this like awful situation, she does bring up a very good point, right? the government's giving her money for not trying, really, when a mom isn't going to get that same level of support when they're actually trying.
Yeah. Yes, it's crazy.
And that theme comes up a couple times, right? So Trudy's ready to cut Macon off because he's about to turn 18, and she's like, well, he's useless to me now. So...
I'll stop getting money for him, and then it'll become an expense instead of money paid out.
But luckily for Trudy, there's this crazy event in the middle of the book that solves Trudy's problem.
A group of them, I don't remember who's there.
It's like all the kids.
Everybody but Trudy.
Bam Bam's there too.
Yeah, the 6-year-old Bam Bam's following along, which just happens. Bam Bam just like follows them around while they're doing horrific things, such as they have a baby carriage. Which they've just come across. I don't remember if they brought it with them or if they just like saw it.
I think it's just there.
Yeah.
They don't explain.
But they find a baby carriage and they're over by the highway, and they thought it'd be fun. And Jenna has our camera, of course. They thought it'd be fun to like take the baby carriage up to a downslope so that they could let it go and it could run into the street and freak people out, which is exactly what it does.
Well, they film it for their website, right? The whole point is to get this horrible footage.
Yeah. So they let this baby carriage, they let it go, which reminded me of the end of Talk to Me, the movie where the main character is like in a wheelchair, I think, and they let her go into the street. But anyway, in this case, it ends up that the baby carriage causes like a 10-car pileup. And people get seriously injured and die. And so Jenna's really excited filming this. And they're like, we got to get out of here, but also got to get the footage.
Yeah, and some guy gets thrown from his motorcycle, right? And spots them and starts chasing them down.
Yeah, and ends up catching Macon, who's severely overweight and not very fast, and just beats the crap out of him.
To like an inch of his life, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think they're pretty sure he has a concussion and he's bleeding all over everything.
Yeah, but they end up getting him and helping him get out, and they bring him home.
And they're devastated because they lost their wagon. They had to leave the wagon behind, and that's their worst concern, is that they lost their DDT jars.
Yeah. They have a pool in the front. I think, just like one of those
pool,
like,
this little plastic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I imagine it's just full of like gross rainwater or what. Well, I guess it's just been sitting there, but it still has some water in it. And so Macon goes and sits in there and is out of it. And then eventually we find out that what happened is, well, we find out right away that the next day he's dead, right? And the implication is that he died of his wounds.
Yeah, his head injury was too much, and he bled in his brain or whatever.
Yeah, and then they have to go like drag him and bury him.
They don't have to; they choose to.
Yeah, for these
and they're
characters,
all worried. They're like, "Is he really dead?" And it's like, "Yes, he's really dead. Come on, let's go bury him." And then I think even at one point, Skeet's like, "He better be dead because I'm not going to kid jail, for burying him alive." It's like, oh my God, that's what you're thinking about. I love it.
And this solves Trudy's problem that he was going to turn 18 and then he was going to become a liability, but he's no longer alive anymore. And I guess I won't say exactly what happens, but we find out that there is more to his death.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a twist at the end. What a twist.
Yeah. So he's out of the picture, which makes me worried for Jenna because she's 16. So what's going to happen to her in a couple of years?
Well, and she has a boyfriend, right? And
yeah,
I
she'd
think
probably
the implication
move out or
is that
whatever.
she's going to quote unquote run away or just leave.
Yeah. This is all just day in the life stuff for these people. Maybe the pile up is a little extra.
I mean, it happens here and there, and then in between their normal chaos life, we get tidbits about what's going on with the Heather thing. And then there's also tourists who are driving through and end up hitting a pothole that is like basically a crater in the ground, and it completely demolishes their tire on their rental car. And they don't have a phone, because this is a bit before everyone's got a cell phone.
These are like MapQuest days.
Yeah, MapQuest, printing
you just like
it out.
print out the directions, which was like so cool at that point. But
yeah, it was pretty impressive. They tell you to turn left and right and stuff instead of just.
But you still had to pay attention.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows? People also just still use maps at this point. So Skeet and the gang come up across these people, and it's a husband and wife, and the wife is very pregnant, and Cricket's like, oh, hey, you're pregnant, me too, and like shows off her very not pregnant belly, and the wife's like, oh, okay. And they're
like they're in like the kind of not the middle of nowhere, but they're in the stupidly drove off like in wetlands area where this happened, and there's like tall grass around them, and all of a sudden the group of these kids appear from the grass, and you imagine the way they've been described is quite unsettling. So right away they're like, what the hell is happening?
But then and then the kids say, oh, we have a phone at home, you can come use our phone. And at first they're like, oh, great, thanks. And then they start to hesitate. But to be fair, after looking at Google Maps, pretty much the whole town is covered in high grass. So they could have been on the, they could have been
like a regular old
downtown
road. Okay. I was imagining like, so, hey, I'll just turn off in the wetlands over here.
I think that they were on a deserted street, but not in the middle of nowhere.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Because they do walk to their house.
Yeah.
So it's not that far, but
I guess just where they live is the middle of nowhere. So wherever you are in Yeehaw Junction,
that's exactly it.
Yeah. So they get invited back to the house, and
then the invitation becomes more of a demand.
Yeah,
and that's when shit gets real wild.
Maybe we should just leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, because we don't want to ruin all of this. We'll just say that it gets real dark and real intense with this couple. And yeah, it's great. It's a great part of the book. It really just goes full horror at this point.
One of the interesting things about the book too is like it doesn't happen too often, but there'll be these chapter interludes that go to 2025. There is this one specific chapter by a YouTuber, a high school kid or something like that. His channel is like talking about crazy places around the U.S. or whatever, and he's focusing.
Or was it specifically Florida? I think it was like Florida history.
Yeah, I think it was. But he's doing like a spotlight on Yeehaw Junction, and it's cool. It's just kind of a way to look at it from our future angle, from the point of view of somebody who's not insane
and not from there and immersed in it, right? Like it's an outsider point of view.
Yeah, and so some of these other chapters we get, there's a police interrogation with Jenna that we read the transcript of that takes us out of Skeet's mind. So we get these little points of breaking out of the narrator's head to give more context to the area and these characters, which is really cool. But it's not too much. Like I feel like it could have been like, hey, we're going to go from 1999 to 2025 back and forth, but it's done just sparingly enough to give you a little bit more to hold on to and add more to the narrative texture.
Yeah, it's a nice way to keep Skeet as the narrator the entire time and get perspectives that complement but also contradict, and just show that it's not just Skeet who's batshit crazy, but it's this whole area. Yeah, it's very cleverly done. I really appreciated those bits, especially because at first, so the interludes tended to come before the explanation that made you understand the interlude. So it was the first one I read, I was confused as to what was going on, who these people were. And then later as you read, it becomes clear. So it's a bit of foreshadowing in a sense, giving you more information, giving you some explanation, but not explaining explicitly how those things tie into the book. You have to figure them out yourself and also be patient on some of them to get information later. And I really liked that because it kept you, or it kept me at least, not just reading the story for itself, but looking for context clues as to why these things were brought up and what the, what the real story was going on in the background from what Skeet was telling us. And it definitely, it was worth the extra thought, because the way the story unfolds in the end is a whole nother level of, oh my fucking God, this place is so fucked.
You know what it reminds me of? I mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre earlier, and I think I said this on the previous podcast, but I went with some friends to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original one, in theaters on the day that the movie takes place. And it was really weird because they played the movie and then without playing any credits or anything, it immediately went into this afterword with Patton Oswalt talking about how important Texas Chainsaw Massacre was to him, or at least like it was just a movie he had watched a bunch of times, and he made this really cool observation which I feel like could apply here. So like the last shot of the movie has Leatherface flailing with his chainsaw, like spinning in circles, just being batshit crazy, and there's a red sun in the background. And so what Patton Oswalt was saying is I view this movie as a cosmic horror movie, and the red sun indicates a dawning of this cosmic horror over the land, and that all these people have been driven crazy by this cosmic horror sun. And I think that definitely applies to these characters here. Like, they've just gone totally batshit crazy. And I think it's coming from them and the DDT, but it was a cool observation to think about, of just things have settled down on this area and driven everybody nuts.
I haven't seen that movie in a while. It makes me want to watch it now. I thought about that as well, just thinking of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and how it, just that these people living in this rural, chaotic, abnormal world have a lot of similarities. But I like that cosmic element to it, because I don't see, this isn't really cosmic horror at all, but with the DDT aspect of it, it definitely adds a level of insanity, chaos that is man-made, manufactured, but creates a layer of, okay, there's something else at play. It's not just that these people are this fucked up, or are they?
Yeah, they're fucked up for sure. There's so many angles of.
But it's also, is it because of the DDT? Yeah. Is my thought, right? I mean, it causes birth defects in animals and in people and stuff, and they say that it might have connections with levels of Alzheimer's disease.
And just psychological development. And since most of these characters are kids, except for Cricket and Trudy, they're still developing. And how much has that affected their psychological development? Quite a lot, I would assume. And the fact that they live in just a shithole. Yeah,
I was going to say, though, at the end of the day, does it really matter? Because they're just fucking psychotic. So what do you do at that point?
This is wait, how do you make a chicken or the egg metaphor? The DDT or the brain? I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say.
Is it nature or nurture?
There we go. I'm going to go with DDT or the brain.
Oh, God.
So if you haven't gotten the hint, this is a very bleak book with a very cool prose style, and just everything that could be disgusting and wrong happens here. But it's also a really cool read, and I think it's good that it's short. I don't know if I don't know. I would have read it if it was longer, because we like these kinds of books. But I think it's the perfect length. It is very not taxing, but just the amount of horrible things that go on in a short amount of space, or a short page count, is it works well within a slim.
It would be really intense if this book was much longer. It would need to calm down a bit. You'd need the pace to slow down more at times.
And then it'd be totally different.
This is a fast-paced book, yeah. There's no pause to sit down and reflect on what the hell's going on. It's just like, what the fuck, the whole book. And then it's over, and then you sit and you think about it, and you're like, what the fuck did I just read?
Yeah, it feels very much, as someone who has never lived in Florida or even in the East Coast, it feels like the Florida you think about when you think of that kind of Florida, multiplied by about 7 or more.
Yeah, well, it fits the stereotypes that non-Floridians give to Florida, but seeing that Scholz is actually from Florida makes you wonder.
If we're not thinking of like hard enough, we need to get more depraved.
Well, no, I was thinking like what really is going on in Florida, but yeah, that too. I just remember we have friends who live out there, who moved out there from Oregon, and we visited them, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to go to the alligator park?" And it's a theme park with like alligators and snakes and stuff. And we just laughed to each other like, this is just so only in Florida, right? Like that's actually a saying, only in Florida. And this book fits that, but it's also a really fun thing because, well, like, oh, of course it's not actually like that.
The narrator's voice, Skeet's voice, is just so good. And even though it is all these terrible things happen, I don't want to say it's like the narration is joyful at all, but there's kind of a naive optimism to the way things are described, interlaced with descriptions of all this terrible stuff going on. But it doesn't feel like I guess the character's voice is just so interesting and fun to read that it adds an element of not humor, we'll call it black humor, to everything going on. So it's not just like you're not just constantly hit with only depressing things. It's done in a way it's fun and engaging to read.
Yeah, and I think too, having it in the horror umbrella, you're allowed to do that and it works. It definitely has a sense of humor to itself. Not in a self-deprecating way, just in the absolute ridiculousness of the situations that these characters find themselves in and their perspective on those situations.
Yeah. I liked it a lot. All the trigger warnings. Is there a trigger warning this book doesn't have? I don't know. It's a lot of, there's a lot of violence and a lot of fucked up shit, which is part of what's so endearing about it.
I don't think there's any animal violence.
Well, there's the albino alligator who was already dead and stinking up the trunk. I guess that's different.
Right.
Okay.
But like they're not hurting animals.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm being facetious. I don't mean that they... Basically, my point is that a lot of bad things happen.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
I was kind of teasing you, but yes, also pretty much all the trigger warnings are hit on this. So if you're sensitive about that stuff, you can. I think the best place to check for that if you have Storygraph would be there. Yeah, so on the Storygraph trigger warning section, it says kidnapping, death, drug abuse, gore, violence, addiction. There's some moderate child abuse, gun violence, and then...
Definitely body horror.
Yeah, so body horror with violence, which you would expect, but it can be pretty graphic and stuff. So some triggers, this would be one to check on before you read it, which hopefully is a good endorsement for other people because that would encourage me to want to read this book.
Oh, terrible things. Do tell.
Give me more. So yeah, so overall, all around, I really enjoyed this book. I'm really glad we got our hands on it and that it exists in this world. It's a good book, so I would recommend reading it.
Yeah, it's good. Prose is great. Unreliable narrators are always fun. It's short enough that all the terrible things going on don't overwhelm you. And yeah, the characters are great. The setting is just crazy. And I recommend it. I had a fun time reading it. We're not going to go over, we usually end our episodes with what we've been reading, but since this is a bonus episode between our normal every other week episodes, we don't read that much. Well, maybe Amber does.
Well, yeah, but the whole episode is your bonus. You don't get the privilege of hearing what we're reading about. You have to wait. Have some patience. Jesus, people.
Thanks for listening, though, and follow us on Dust to Dawn podcast on Instagram and rate our show. Hopefully you liked it. And we'll see you next week for our regular episode again on Frankenstein. This one's exciting for me. I think it's exciting for Amber too because she doesn't like it. So that'll be great. We'll definitely have some good conversations there. Followed by North American Lake Monsters on November 25th. And getting ready for Christmas season, we got Candy Cane Kills coming on December 9th. So we'll see you then. Thanks for listening.
Well, if you've made it this far, then we didn't scare you off. Thanks for listening to Dusk to Dawn, reading horror and weird fiction.
Please rate our podcast, and if you like, follow us on Instagram at Dusk to Dawn Podcast, which is also our Gmail address. Tell us what you liked or didn't like about the show, and let us know if you have any book suggestions. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.